Hello, everyone, and welcome to Movie Mandates, the show where my sister and I force each other to watch movies according to a monthly theme. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Kelly.
And this month's theme is AFI Top 100. So, I mandated Kelly watch Amadeus, the biopic of a man who, upon request, will rock you. But before we get to that, it's only fair that since I mandated today's movie, Kelly gets to challenge me in a segment we call Trivial Trivia.
Excellent. So I was very inspired, obviously, by music this week. I mean, go figure. We watched Amadeus. So this is a real trivia question, but it's trivial because it doesn't matter. Worth it. There have been 94 Academy Awards. Isn't that exciting? So next year It will be 95 because that's how numbers work. And of those 94 Best Pictures, how many do you think have been musicals? And then can you name one?
Well, I mean, Amadeus was an award winner in its year, which was like 80. It's 84, I think.
It is 84.
I don't think it won
Best Picture.
Did it win Picture?
It did. It's not a musical.
It has music in it, but it's not a musical. Okay. And it was nominated for like 10 or 11 awards or something like that.
Well, it was up for a lot. It won F. Murray Abram, I forget his last name.
Abraham,
yeah. He went up against Mozart. In Best Actor.
Oh, Tom Hulce or something. I saw his name in the credits. I don't know.
They were both up for Best Actor.
Dude, was that the woman from Sex and the City as like a child?
Yes.
Cynthia Nixon or something like that.
And then
it took me like 20 minutes. I'm like, I've seen her somewhere.
Art direction, set direction, costume design, screenplay. It didn't win. I don't know. It didn't win all of them. And I only know it didn't win all of them because, of course, like Lord of the Rings, I know all those stats. So yeah, that's about Amadeus. We're talking about
so 94 award ceremonies. How many won that were musicals? Let's go with 20.
Ooh, way too high.
Way too high? Okay.
That's okay. Can you name
10?
Yeah, right? No, 10 didn't win. There's not. And that one's 9, not 10. I'm like, there's not even.
How many is it?
10. 10.
Oh, 10 even. Okay,
yeah, it's
double
10.
it. I thought I was being really generous because I was thinking 15. Now let's go high. Because we love musicals. West Side Story?
It did. The original one did. Yep. Chicago.
Was the Spielberg one nominated this year?
It was.
For picture or anything else? For picture? Okay, yeah.
Yes. Ariana DeBose actually won for Best Supporting Actress, which Rita Moreno also won for the same role in
Wait, she's in both?
No, the character of Anita.
Right.
Was played by Rita Moreno.
Right.
Rita Moreno won Best Supporting Actor for West Side Story in whatever year that was. 61.
Yeah.
This year, Ariana DeBose won.
Oh, I thought you were saying
Anita in West Side Story.
Oh, I thought you were saying she was in the new West Side Story. Okay.
So that's what. No, I'm saying that the same character got 2 different ladies.
Okay, so
an Oscar.
Nice.
There's also Oliver, that piece of crap movie. Sound of Music.
I don't even really like the story of Oliver that much. I mean, it doesn't bother me terribly, but I'm like, it's fine.
It's just so bad.
Did Oklahoma win in its year?
No.
That wasn't a winner?
No, to be fair, there has been dozens of
nominations.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Oklahoma was not a winner. it probably was nominated, would be my guess. I need to work on my diction. But yeah, so there's been several nominations. You know, it also didn't win is La La Land, contrary to some people's belief. Sorry.
Isn't that a jukebox musical?
It is.
Wait, did Moulin Rouge win?
No, it did not.
Okay. That was nominated, though, wasn't it? Did Chicago win?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Chicago won in 2003, and actually that is the most recent
musical
winner. There's been
no, Lion King didn't win. That is a musical, but I think Lion King was nominated, wasn't it?
No, Beauty and the Beast was nominated.
Beauty and the Beast, I'm sorry.
And it created a
animation category.
Why don't we have our own animation category?
So, okay, yeah, because a lot of musicals have won Best Animated Film.
Yes.
But they're not Best Picture winners because a lot of music. Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. The more you know. And Git knows a lot about the Academy Awards because they're like my holiday.
I've been ignoring them since like 2001. I probably told this story a bunch of times, but
after Gladiator,
like, yeah, in 2000 or 2001, whenever the movie came out, well, did it come out in 2000? Right. So
and then
my sister, our grandmother, and I, we went to the theater to see Gladiator in spring of 2000. And I remember vividly walking out to the parking lot.
And I do too. I was there. I recall specifically.
And grandma is like, so what'd you think of the movie? And I said almost verbatim something like, well, it's no Best Picture, but it was all right.
Yes. And yes, 100%. Brother was like, it's no Best Picture, but
I was away doing something and I couldn't watch that following year's Academy Awards. So I came home and my grandmother had taped it on VHS, and I got home, but I didn't watch it because I'd already heard it, because I got home and I had the VHS, and then I heard that Gladiator won Best Picture, and I went, and I never watched the Academy Awards again. I'm like, okay, nope, I'm done. I don't care anymore. And there's nothing wrong with Gladiator. It's a perfectly fine film. I liked Gladiator. But as I said when I came out of the theater 20 years ago, I mean, it's no best picture, but it's I enjoyed it. And that's why I don't get a fruit basket from the Academy each year.
They're like, yeah, they actually made you send back those oranges. So yay, trivial trivia. We get no presents for knowing the answers.
That's right. All right, so Amadeus. That's what my joke was for. I originally.
You don't need to explain that joke.
Yeah,
got it.
When I originally phrased the joke, I had phrased it the only biopic of a man who, upon request, will rock you, and I thought, well, Queen.
Oh, hey.
We will rock you. Dun, dun, yeah. And then I thought, well, then there's Riva from the Eurovision video I did in July or whenever it was. The woman in the white dress with the outfit. You know, her songs, "Rock Me Baby," da 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 da, da "Rock Me Baby." So she'll rock you upon request too. So lots. There are several. So I had to nix only. Yes, there's a lot of rocking going on.
If you see a Casbah,
rock it. That's right. I don't know what a Casbah is, but I know if I ever have one, I know what to do.
Exactly.
So Amadeus is 3 hours long. Mm-hmm. At least the director's cut is.
Yes.
And you know what? The original cut was not available for streaming. So we watched the director's cut, all 3 hours of it.
3 hours of it.
And did you watch it last night?
I did watch it last night.
Yeah, because I tried to watch it last night and it said someone's watching this, so you can't run the same movie on the same account at the same time. I said, I guess I'm gonna have to wait until she's done.
Oh,
so I was up until like 1. No, I was up until 1:30 in the morning watching this movie, and then I watched She-Hulk.
We're watching that right after we're done recording. He's like, "Now your brother and you record like what, like an hour? When will you be done?"
We try.
I'm like,
I mean,
calm down.
we've got the stopwatches going, so we try to keep it to an hour.
Oh, wait,
after
hold on.
Child's Play.
Let's not talk about She-Hulk because remember it's December.
Oh, right. The month of December, and She-Hulk ended its run 2 months ago, and it was amazing. Very good. I really enjoyed.
Loved it.
Yep.
Favorite. All of them are favorite episodes.
Yep. That part where She-Hulk did the thing, and then quipped the thing. That was great.
So Amadeus. So I'm sorry.
Oh, Amadeus.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and like say it. I loved every single second of this movie. I didn't rest. I was at the front of my couch cushions. I didn't go back. And I realized as I'm saying this, not as I'm saying this, I realized before I was saying this, I am the person this movie is made for.
Yeah.
I worked in opera. I knew every song. I knew this movie is made like an opera.
It's originally a stage play, isn't it?
It is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Mozart versus Salieri or something. But like the thing that was so amazing to me in watching this movie is that I knew all the it's almost like it's a foreign language, but it was a language that I know because they talk about the libretto and they talk about staccato and they talk about like they use all of the, and like when F. Murray Abraham is like explaining it to the priest who was poorly cast, but that's fine because he's not necessary.
Yeah, I mean the role had nothing to do, so
no, and it's fine if they were like, "Yo, you just put on a robe, sit on down and listen to this man speak."
And look, yeah.
But just like how he spoke about the composition of the music and how it flowed and how each note brought you to this. And then when Mozart was explaining, like, it was just like, it was in a language I understood, all of the music I understood. And it was amazing because the story, it's a 3-hour movie and it's a tiny story, which is every single bloody opera there is that the story is like man falls in love. Well, this is not a love story per se, but like, you know, most operas, no action takes place on stage. They all sing about what is going on. And it's just like, they stand and they sing about love. And then it takes them 3 hours to write a letter. Act 2 is always the letter writing scene. And so for me, this whole thing was just an opera. And because opera is so amazing to me, I could have stayed up till 2, 3, 4 watching it. So I apologize that it wasn't reversed. But
no,
were you at least enwrapped?
Yes, I very much enjoyed the movie. As a performing artist and musician myself, there is a lot I appreciate about this movie. And as you said, you know, operas you can sum them up in a paragraph pretty much, even regardless of them being, you know, 4 hours long. And this movie is essentially this. There is an Italian composer named Salieri, and he wants from a very young age, he wanted nothing more than to be a great composer because he loves music. He hasn't, and you could say this actually is a love story, but it's not the love between two people. That's the focus of the film. It's a love of music and the trials and tribulations that get in the way of that relationship. And so anyway, Salieri as a boy is enraptured by music and wants nothing more than to create. And he does. And he becomes the court composer of the King of Austria. And he has some measure of renown. He's well liked, well respected. But he knows that he's not the best. He's not top tier. He's good. He's solid, but he's no master of musical composition. That would be Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, whose music he absolutely loves. And he hates Wolfgang Mozart for that. And so instead of celebrating his love of music, he tries to destroy Mozart. Sabotage Mozart, and basically makes himself miserable for his entire life because he just can't pull his head out of his ass.
Basically, yeah. He the biggest thing is like he in the movie, by the way, because the feud between Mozart's and Salieri is just something that has been put out there as like interesting. Wouldn't it be interesting if there's no, I don't think that there's actual quote unquote proof that these two were rivals.
They both existed.
They existed at the same time. Their paths definitely did cross. They were both composers. We still do, like, so there's a lot
no one remembers Salieri or his music at all. I think the only reason we know him today is because of the play and the subsequent film.
Yeah, that's the only reason we know his name. Falstaff is still done from time to time. People do still do Falstaff, but I think that they do it more from brand recognition of Shakespeare than brand recognition of Salieri.
I would think so, yeah.
But he, in this movie, he devotes his life to music. Nothing is getting in the way of music, whereas Mozart,
the only thing that does is him.
He doesn't even try. It just is. It's like the most he didn't deserve the talent.
Well, the movie glosses over this a little bit, but it's understood that Salieri had to work for what he for where he is. He studied, and he devoted his life to he says, God in heaven, I will forego boning and not sweets. I'm gonna eat my nibbles, but no sex, no worldly stuffs. Just help me become a great composer. And then he sees Mozart, who's putting on concerts when he's 6, and who's so genius at music that it's like for Mozart, it's as comfortable and easy and natural as breathing.
Yeah,
just making a melody is just here you go, and that pisses Salieri off. He's like, why is this crass, foul-mouthed, obnoxious fool favored by God with this mastery of musical composition? He doesn't appreciate it. I would appreciate it. And he feels slighted by that. And he spends his life working to sabotage Mozart's station and performance. Like, he puts on a performance, but he makes sure that it only has like 6 or 7 performances. He makes sure that he doesn't, he gets all the bad jobs. He never gets any of the good jobs.
He spreads rumors about him. With his pupils. And,
but he goes to every single performance, and it drives him absolutely nuts that no one else really recognizes how genius Mozart is except him. And that drives him nuts too.
And it does, because he wants to hate this guy, and it's incredible. He's like, I feel everything and that he feels. And like when he was talking about the Commendatore in Don Giovanni, coming out and singing that Don Giovanni, and the representation,
some wonderful singing in this film too.
And it's just everything he says. He doesn't narrate the movie per se. Like, basically the movie is his recollection of how things went.
There's a wraparound story of old man Salieri talking about his how he ruined his life trying to ruin someone else's,
Yeah.
and instead of celebrating a love of music with them, which at the very spoilers, the movie's 30 years old. At the very end of the movie,
Almost 40.
Oh, good God, 84, right? Yeah. Okay, it's over 30 years old, nearly 40 years old now. God, we're old. So at the end of the movie, Mozart's on his deathbed, just dictating music, and Salieri's writing it down. And there's a moment there where, as an audience member, you're watching and you're thinking, dude, this is it. You're having fun. You're enjoying things. This is what you were missing. And
he loved it, and he could see, like, that was a beautiful scene, and like his excitement that he was the hand that was putting those notes to paper, even though they came from Mozart's dictation. It was a beautiful thing to watch, and those actors, you could tell the delight and like his pleasure in, he was helping Mozart. And if they would have just been bros.
And Mozart from this movie, that this is a dramatization, most of it's probably made up. Salieri was probably a married dude, had a bunch of kids,
He was a married dude with a bunch of kids.
Do you know that, or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I don't know if there are any like old letters that people found that describe the way Mozart laughed, but Mozart died quite a long ways before recorded sound, so that's probably invented for this story. Yes. Laugh.
Yes, I will say, even if you have not seen Amadeus, I think most people, there's two things about Amadeus that I knew before I went in, and number one is the cover art. Like, you can just see the Commendatore
that poster.
Yes, so like you've seen it, whether or not you remembered it was Amadeus or not. Like, it's like, oh, I've seen that. And his laugh or whatever, that's more girly because I happen to be one. Yep. But here's the thing that I find interesting about that laugh is watching previews for this movie, or having known it fits within the movie. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, within the movie, it totally fits. I think however they got there, however they made that character choice, if there were old letters about how Salieri just couldn't stand the sound of Mozart's laugh, wouldn't that be interesting if there was something somewhere?
You also have to remember that the movie we're watching is the story that Salieri is telling.
Yes, so also correct.
The Mozart of the reality of the film may not have he may actually be playing up the obnoxiousness of Mozart's laugh.
Yes, and
in his telling of that story, right?
And
his philandering and crassness, and chasing Constance around the dinner table at the beginning of the film. There's and he's clearly embellishing some stuff, because some of the scenes where he's talking about stuff he wasn't there for. So
little suspension of disbelief, but
So one thing that's really funny to me is I watched the Gem and the Holograms cartoon show, which was late 80s. I watched it a few years ago. And one of the episodes, Gem and the Holograms travel back in time, and they end up in 18th century Austria, and they meet Mozart. And in the cartoon, he has that high-pitched laugh. And I talked about it when I did my video review, and I didn't realize at the time that it was definitely inspired by the movie that at the time had come out like 5-6 years earlier. So it's interesting how this movie has influenced that perception of Mozart.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed. So there was in between some of the acts, and no, for those listening, there aren't like title cards, there aren't true acts, but I just
watching it, I was wondering, are they going to do like an intermission?
I was
I was kind
almost
of wondering.
expecting it, but like, so it was very interesting because you could like feel like some tonal shifts as well, because there is a moment when even Salieri, who has dedicated his life to being pious, he gives it up to he basically is like, I'm now anti God because you didn't give me the gift, so I'm gonna burn that
Yeah,
crucifix. And now
I'm gonna make your golden boy miserable. What do you
yeah,
think of
and so
that,
that's like a good like so
boyo?
there's but I enjoyed the passage of time in the costumes and
Oh
the
man,
hair. It was
this
incredible. Like
unlike 50 Shades of Grey, this movie is extraordinarily clever in how
yes,
it depicts passage of
yes,
time.
absolutely.
Outfits, but one of the major markers is Mozart's wife, uh, fiance, newlywed, pregnant, infant, small kid, slightly larger kid.
Yeah,
That's just one of the visual ways that they communicate the passage of time without awkward title cards or confusing the audience.
right.
So um
It's very well
some
done, and
really
I
wonderful filmmaking, also incredibly well paced for a 3 hour movie. There's like no fat on this. A lot of these scenes are allowed to breathe,
yes,
if you take my meaning, but there's no. I actually looked up to see what was cut out. From what I understand, the director's cut was the original cut that was pared down by
okay.
20 minutes to be releasable.
So
Um, and I looked to see what was cut for the 2 hour and 35-minute version or whatever it is.
and
And it's mostly scene extensions, just longer scenes, a little bit more. But there are two major sequences that are apparently not in the theatrical version, if IMDb trivia is to be believed.
oh, okay, and that is
And that's the scene where um, Solieri tells Constance, Mozart's wife,
mhm,
that if you want me to do this for him, you're going to have to come back
come
here
back
later at
tomorrow.
night. And she does and takes off her shirt. And then he's like, no, go away. Apparently, in the original cut or the theatrical cut, he doesn't even make the offer. He just turns her down and goes back to his music lesson. So that whole sequence is not in there.
Okay,
Um, did that change the rating? I don't even know what the movie's rated.
there are boobages. I think it
There,
would
there's boobs
because
in the director's cut.
yeah, that's what I mean. That
So
scene that
that's
you just spoke
probably
of, that's
R.
where the boobages
But
are.
I'm wondering if it's PG-13 without them. I don't know, because
Oh,
no,
you want to
there's some
know?
F words, right?
So here's what's
There's some
interesting
coarse
to me.
language.
There are, but like, and I almost
Yes, it's an
so
R-rated film.
when it started and it did the content warning, it
Mm-hmm.
said alcohol consumption, or it said, and I was like, I don't remember the last time that was a. Is that still a warning?
For TV, yes. For MPAA,
I don't.
I don't recall.
Yeah, I'm like, it's been a while since I've seen that. But okay, so what is the other
Yeah.
scene?
The only thing people drink is like wine.
And that's the thing. Let's be clear also is that in the 1700s, so in the 18th century, um, it didn't look like,
Can
I mean,
ferment, will ferment.
but it also like they're just like kind of green, earthy bottles. Like nothing. There's nothing. He
Could be
could
sparkling
just
water.
as well be drinking some sparkling
It's
water
grape
or just
juice.
water from a bottle
Yeah,
because I don't think that they. So it could have been
it's
anything.
apple
But
juice.
yes.
The other scene, well, it's the two scenes. When Solieri says, I can get you a job. And he gets him the job,
Oh, with the
tutoring the kid with the guy with the dogs.
yes.
And then
And then
later in
he
the movie,
comes
he
back.
goes back
Okay.
to beg him for money. Both those scenes are apparently gone in the original. Which,
Okay.
okay, you would have to remove both because it wouldn't make sense. And all told, that's probably 7 or 8 minutes right there.
And then
So,
if you cut down some of the arias, because they
mhm.
really, I mean, they let Christine Ebersol sing
That's
like
some
the
amazing
entire.
editing with the yeah. That's hard to cut because they just let the song play and then cut along it, which was
It,
great.
yeah, it's incredible. But like, I could see if they wanted to do some of like you know, but I do remember when it was, so when you ordered the movie and then I went to watch it and it said director's cut, the first thing I thought about was, of course, Justice League. And I was like, oh boy, we're watching the director's cut, because sometimes the director's cut, and a lot of times the director's cut just means a little bit longer. I'm going to put back those scenes that I really, really wanted, but the movie is still the same. But very recently, Zack Snyder put out a director's cut of Justice League, and it's completely different
movie. Yeah,
completely different.
I haven't watched it yet, but I've read about it.
Completely different movie.
Yeah,
so I was.
It's more miniseries now than movie.
So when I saw that it was the director's cut, I was like, I hope it's still
the movie, right? It's still representative of what
so that's very
audiences enjoyed in '84.
That knowing
it's pretty much the same movie. It's just more character and color and flavor, and important stuff. I think it really. These are important bits. I get that's like, guys, we cannot release a 3-hour movie in 1984. You can barely do that today unless it's a superhero movie.
Right? Oh, right. I think about that when I watched this movie. I was just like, I mean, I truly was enwrapped, and I just couldn't. As I said, it took me till now to watch this movie because I had not seen it before, and I can't believe it took me till now to watch it. And it's just, I don't know, maybe even if you don't know music, listening to F. Murray talk about it is in the way he describes it, and he acts like it's the most beautiful thing, and it's like washing over him, and this music is making him feel things, which, by the way, that's what opera is about. Opera isn't about the story, it's about a feeling.
Because you're probably not going to understand what they're saying. Even though, odd choice in this movie, all the German was changed to English.
I was about to say, all of a sudden, like, I think the Queen of the Night was still singing Die Haller Wacht.
All the Italian was Italian, but the German was English. I think it's because that must have been a creative choice. It's like, look, folks, we're not doing accent wrangling. Everyone's speaking German, but we're all speaking English. Don't do accents.
Here's why I think that. So it did. So when Papageno and Papagena come on, the little birds, by the way. By the way, anyone who wants Magic Flute was his final. It's terrible. It's just a terrible show. And here's the thing:
the music's great.
The music is amazing. The night,
the dumbest damn. It is so weird.
It is the.
I think he was high.
Show he truly was delirious. He truly was having something going on with his life. That this is what he ended his. And it still gets done. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. But
the music is great. But
I do find it strange sometimes to know those shows that will always get done, and to know that there are tons of Mozart operas that aren't done anymore. But it does. But one of the reasons why, and it mentions it in the movie, is a lot of the early operas were about God and they were just more pious. They weren't for like enjoyment, if you will. Oh, so here's what I was saying about the German. So this takes place in Vienna, and as no one, as brother you just said, like, no one has an accent. No, everyone can speak to everyone, and they do speak in Italian from time to time to each other. But I think that it was just
F. Murray Abraham affects an Italian accent occasionally, hints of an Italian accent.
There.
But he's ostensibly speaking German, which is rendered as English.
So yes, and that's, I think, why they did that, is because in this movie everything German is English, to make it, because, again, by the way, for those of you who didn't know, I'm just going to teach everyone opera today. The reason. And there's a wonderful argument in the movie with Jeffrey Jones, and he plays the Emperor. That's the title, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you don't know who that is, he's the guy from Beetlejuice.
He's the principal in Ferris Bueller.
Oh, that's right, he's in Ferris Bueller. I was looking at him and I'm like, I know him from something else too. Ferris Bueller.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, brother. Opera was made to be for the masses. So they wanted the language to be the language of the people. And it just, which is why they had a German, Mozart composed a lot in German and then Italian at other places, because if you actually do look at where he was commissioned to write operas in different places. So wherever you write it, supposedly you're supposed to write it in the language of the people. And here in St. Louis, our OTSL sings every opera in English. And the reason we sing every opera in English here is because it is the language of the people. So I think it's very interesting, even though it threw me off when the little birds were singing English.
I'm like, I've never heard that in English.
It threw me off, but it made sense. It like clicked, because throughout the whole movie, I did have that tiny little thing in the back of my head going, none of these people are German, and they're not like, this is very interesting. And then it didn't click until they started singing in English, and I'm like, it's for the masses, and I'm the mass.
It's interesting how different art forms, opera included, have gone through phases of who their actual target audience is and who the perceived target audience is.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes opera is, you know, depending on where and when you're talking about, as you said, it's, you know, highfalutin, hoity-toity, artsy-fartsy for the aristocracy, rich peoples. And at other times, it's bawdy, populist entertainment. And Shakespeare also, you know, Shakespeare a lot of times is like, oh, it's the bar, the great works. It's like, no, this is playing to the drunken assholes in the bar. They love this shit.
12th Night?
Seriously, yeah. You know, it was all, you know, it's all sex and murder and dragons and swords and magic and gods. It's popular entertainment. These are the superhero movies of the time. That's probably why the goddamn magic flute works, because it's so damn weird.
And it also it's just, you know, it is, and it's all about what you have on stage. You have a serpent, you have like, there's a lot of,
it's the Turbo Kid of operas.
It truly is. If you want, you have the Queen of the Night, who always has some crazy get up. You have
the people dressed as birds is the thing that everyone always remembers. The bird costumes. That's what makes that show.
And I'm not gonna lie, they're not birds, by the way. They are bird watchers, and yet every single show
has them dressed as birds.
Because they do sing about, like, you can watch birds better when you dress like birds, and you're just like, no. Pretty sure no.
Yeah, but I've never seen it like a ghillie mantle or anything. No, it's like a full
it is
unitard with feathers glued to it. Like, if you're listening to that sucker in German, you're like, these are birds. These people are playing birds.
Yeah, they truly
you would
do.
know.
So
like, they got a bird cage. It's metaphorical, I guess. No, it's
Taserface. It's metaphorical. See, we go from.
I did like the costume in the movie. He had the bird cage on his back. Had actual birds in it. Did you notice?
Oh,
there were actual live birds in it.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't been realistic and have a dead one at the bottom.
Just flopping around the bottom, rolling around the bottom of the cage.
Speaking of realism, so there's a little like a vaudevillian-ish troupe in the movie that also commissioned him. I think that's who he writes Magic Flute for, but I don't think so. I think there was another opera that they just kind of glanced over. Doesn't matter. Maybe it was Cosi. It could have been. Point is, in
one critique, that troupe is introduced like out of nowhere. I'm like, who is this now?
That to me was the only weird part of the movie.
And the lead troupe member, I'm like, who is this guy?
So as we've just talked about, like, they do really well with establishing time and pacing and where we are, but they really did go from his father dying and the baby was an infant. So the wife is holding the baby and his father has passed. And I think it's like the very next scene, they're in box seats of this kind of vaudevillian making fun of type show, farcical show on operas and other, aristocratic type things. And the son is now like a toddler.
Right. Which
makes sense. So
you're like, oh, shoot, but 3 years later. Yeah.
So it's 2-3 years later, which is fine, but you're like, who are, and then you meet the guy, like they've been friends forever and stuff, and you kind of go with it.
Yeah,
it's fine,
but it is abrupt.
But they had a horse on stage, and that horse did not look happy to be on stage. It was sliding around, and I had to, in my mind, in my headcanon, I was like, that is a great actor, that horse, because in the 1770s or whenever this is,
somewhere in there, yeah,
they probably didn't have good floors, and that horse, they didn't have the animal protective things that we have now, and that horse probably would slip around. So that was a very method acting horse, and I'm like, please tell me it was okay. And of course it was, but it was just one of those things that I noticed. I was like, oh, poor horse.
I love the fact that Mozart, his reaction to that performance is simultaneously, musically, this is garbage,
but it's fun.
But it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And Salieri really could take a cue from that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
One thing you touched on earlier that I definitely want to delve into or highlight a bit more is this movie is very approachable, unless your buns are very uncomfortable to sit on for long periods of time. This movie is very approachable to the musically lay. This movie does a phenomenal job through dialogue, very well written dialogue, very well performed dialogue, particularly by F. Murray Abraham, and also the filmmaking and the way the score is used to visually and audibly explain what the hell they're talking about when they're talking about music and why it's good. They do an excellent job of showing the difference between Salieri's work and Mozart's work, and they do a wonderful job of as you were talking about with F. Murray Abraham, in his old man makeup, which was really great, talking about the music, and he communicates very well what it sounds like and how it makes you feel. So if you consider yourself among the musically lay, don't let that scare you off the movie, because it's very accessible, I think, to every musical experience level. I also particularly love the transcription sequence at the end of the movie on his deathbed, how the soundtrack is bringing in all of the different pieces as he's like, okay, there's a high cello note, it comes in on the soundtrack, and you're like, okay, I hear it, and it's representative of this is what he hears in his head, and it becomes clearer as Salieri starts to grasp it. And also, this man, seriously, Salieri, dude, brosive, he could have been the world's first music blogger, like he right, because he's like the biggest music fanboy. He could have taught music theory. Instead, he just, everyone's like, well, I think there are too many notes. They have no vocabulary available to them to describe music or what they think about it or why. And Salieri does, but he doesn't teach it to them. He just goes, you're right, just too many notes, and it's killing him inside. But he's also transcribing with pen and paper by ear. Oh my god, he is a genius. He's just not a genius composer. He is a musical genius.
Yes,
he's just not a genius composer. He's okay composer, but
in that scene, Mozart is laying in bed drenched in his own sweat because he's actively dying in front of us, telling Salieri like, and like going, you know, like kind of, and he's like, oh, that's an F sharp, and he's like, of course, and it's like I'm like, not many people, if you can sing a note, I don't know what it is, I don't have.
Yeah, I have relative pitch. If I'm transcribing a piece, number one, I'm not using pen and paper. I'm not using pencil and paper. I'm using a computer program because I'm going to keep screwing it up. So, you know, I listen to a very short phrase of music and then I hum it to myself and go, da, 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 da. Okay, that sounds like about here, and go, ba, da, 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 da. There it is. Da,
yeah,
da, da.
I can feel the difference between like one note and like a jump, but you know, like I know those differences, but
yeah, this note's higher than the other, this note's lower than the other. Beyond that, you get into, okay, well, that's a third, that's a fifth, you know, do, mi, so. But it's like, oh, that's a D sharp. I don't know. It's, you know, I hear a note, I'm like, it's a D-ish, somewhere around there. Yeah, it's fine.
D is the sandwich key.
That's what pitch pipes are for.
And oh yeah, and they had the not backwards, but they had the piano of the red and the red.
Where the white and black keys are
different. Piano has red on it, Kelly.
Yeah.
Yes, the black and so the scene that I want to talk about real quick that I just find humorous, and then we can wrap up. But there is a moment in Marriage of Figaro where they're celebrating the wedding, and so in one of the ways that Mr. Salieri tries to, you know, pick on Mozart, for lack of better words, at this exact moment. Brother's the wordsmith. I'm just the look. No, I'm joking.
She's not sweating as much as I am.
I'm not. I have AC. I'm sorry. What was I talking about? Yes, so in Marriage of Figaro, they get married because, well, it's in the title. The titular marriage.
You'd feel ripped off if they didn't.
So there's a big dance, and Salieri is like, hey, don't forget to remind the emperor, you know, that ballet has been banned
by the emperor.
By the emperor in Vienna. And so they tell Mr. Mozart this, and they're like, and the director goes up and like rips out the ballet music
pages, yeah.
And he's like, there you go. But Mozart, being Mozart, he's like, well, we'll just do the scene without the music. So when the emperor comes to watch, I guess, dress rehearsal or whatever it is, they just start dancing to no music. And you can hear the pats of their shoes on the stage and the lifts and the sound, like the Foley for this. It's like
proto stomp.
Because it's just like you're hearing just the people dancing on stage, and the emperor's like, what's going on?
It's kind of like if you've ever seen if you've ever seen someone just rocking out, but they've got earbuds in, so you cannot hear what they're just.
Yes.
And you're like,
they're feeling the music, but it's so funny because
Bon Jovi, maybe.
And he's just like, this is. Well, do you enjoy this? This is terrible. No, we need the music. And they're like, dude, it's your
ballet. Life. It's like, well,
and he's like,
yeah, but this sucks.
Though, right? Like, yeah, they should. So he got his way, but it was just so funny that
was hilarious.
Instead of just cutting that whole thing, he's like, well, that's
all right. Well, we'll cut the music. Oh, we ain't cut the sequence,
but we're not going to cut the rest of
it. I love that the performers were all game to just still do the dance with no music,
and they were still on. Well, that's because they had a great maestro. He was just like, you know, conducting and putting him on beat. And I wish, I'm so happy. First off, I'm ecstatic that I've watched this movie. I don't know, where was it? And on let's try this sentence again, shall we? Where was it on AFI? Do you recall?
Oh, is it a ranking?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize that was a ranking. I thought it was just, oh, you're right. I thought it was just, here's a list of the top 100. I didn't realize the number one spot was the number one movie. I have no idea.
Okay, that's fine. We'll get it next time. But either way, I don't know the one that I'm going to tell you to watch. I forget its ranking. There's a few different lists, but
it wasn't the top and it wasn't the end, so it's in there somewhere.
I am so happy I saw it now. However, there's a part of me that wished I would have seen it maybe 20 years ago, just because I would have. I mean, I can't say I wish I would have watched it when I was 3 because that wouldn't have happened. But like, I want to know the process that these, because one of the things that I enjoy about
53.
Hollywood, what number, darling?
53.
53.
Right in the middle.
Very much right in the middle. So yes, this is all true. I want to know the process that these actors went through. Like, I want to know the train, because like, you know, now, like when we have Marvel movies, they're like, oh yeah, she did 6 months of training for this, or she learned how to ride horseback for this. And I want
The
to know,
piano playing to my eye was accurate. So
the piano and the conducting was, I mean, you have to,
well, it's on beat, yeah.
you know, I mean, yes, but there's
no idea if it's accurate to how stuff was conducted at the time, but
that's true. It is different. And I love how, like, but he was also doing all the words with everybody, which is, you know, fun. Which conductors will sometimes do, but yeah, every moment well deserved on this list, and it makes me happy that it's at least, it's not going to be knocked off anytime soon.
There is one thing I was thinking of that I'll run by you.
Oh.
The structure of the film is there's the wraparound story of old man Salieri telling the story of his life around Mozart. Because of this, we know how it ends, even if we're not weird history buffs who knew the fate. I have no idea how accurate to history it is anyway, but
he does die.
Yeah, well, we, you know, everyone, every historical figure from the 18th century did eventually die. Yes.
You
but
gave it away.
We know where Salieri ends up and how he feels. So it's not that there's no drama. It's not that there's no tension. It's just that I was thinking, what if there was no wraparound? What if it was just, it wasn't told in flashback, it was just the movie? Because that would be a very different experience from the audience, because then we'd be rooting for Salieri, and it would still be a tragedy. But even in like the last scene where you can see the sparks of this is it, and you know, he's finding the joy and finding his place, and then, but it's too late. The guy passes away and he's miserable for the rest of his life. It changes the approach. I don't know if for the better, because I don't know. It may just be F. Murray Abraham with the way he performs it, because he's just wonderful to watch. But
it was amazing that you bring that up, because I remember when the movie started last night when I was watching it, and I thought to myself, oh, this is going to be a flashback movie. I was at first a little disappointed, thinking, you know, that sometimes I feel like those are cop-outs, like just because they don't know how to, you know, just kind of like, I don't know how to end this, so it's all a dream. I don't know how to frame this, so it's going to be a flashback. But this one definitely worked for me, because it had to be told, because I don't think that I don't know how else to establish. Again, I'm not in the movie industry, so I shouldn't know. If I knew how else to do these things, I would be making millions, but I wouldn't know how else to make him the narrator unless we gave him, like, I don't know.
Also, because Salieri is not a great person, but he's the lead of the movie. He's the protagonist. Mozart, at least Salieri's interpretation of him, is also not the greatest human being on earth, which without the wraparound would be difficult to connect to any of these characters. With the wraparound, you know that he's a tragic character. So I think that also with the cutaways, you know that he understands that he was wrong. So I think that makes the character as the lead of the movie much more palatable than it would be without the wraparound.
You're right, because without them, without him mentioning that, you would just be like, oh,
this guy sucks.
Terrible.
Everyone sucks.
And and everyone knows how much you and I can't watch a movie. Well, we do. We watch any movie, but like we don't enjoy movies where you just can't get behind, and I could see Mozart being that kind of character for you, and if he was framed in a different light. I could 100% see that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Look at you being all dramaturgy like.
All right. Well, Amadeus, I liked it.
Oh, good. I mean, it's so good.
All right. So that was my mandate for the AFI Top 100. What is yours?
So, in the next 2 weeks, friends, we are going to watch number on this list 40. Wait for it, something. It's in the 40s on this list. It Happened One Night. Claudette Colbert and Clark Gable. From 50 years before Amadeus, 1934.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I have not seen that.
I watched it with Großmutter
Mm-hmm.
in Arizona, which means that had to be at least 20 some odd years ago. And I cannot wait to watch it again. I cannot wait for you to see it. I'm very excited. And
Clark Gable and who?
Claudette Colbert.
Claudette Colbert, okay.
And I can't wait to tell you the story behind this movie because, of course, there's drama when studios, own people like they did in the 30s.
Yeah.
By the way, they owned people. Just putting that out there for y'all. So yeah, it is at this time of recording available to purchase for rental on Amazon Prime. So go and watch it with all of us and come back in 2 weeks.
All right.
Yes.
Well, today's episode may have come to an end, but AFI Top 100 month continues next time with Kelly's mandated movie, It Happened One Night. Only one, not two, not five.
Just that once.
Not -7. One. Not sure how that would work. I guess that would be It Happened Last Week. If that were the case.
I take it all back.
Right. Until then, you can watch Movie Mandates on YouTube or listen to it in podcast form on iTunes. I'm Andrew, and you can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Eisen.
And I'm Kelly, and you can follow me at Eisen.
We hope you've all enjoyed this episode of Movie Mandates, and we'll be back soon with another mandated movie. Bye, everyone.